player bigging up club that he's joined, shocker. The problem of having three managers in the same calendar year is, unless you're recruiting the exact same style, one manager's gold is another man's rubbish. And this last week, some of our first touches have been horrendous. He looks like he's got Velcro on his boots, doesn't he, when he receives that ball? He's just a guy who looks to me like he's played 250 games at a level above this, which, funnily enough, he is. For me, this Luton side can't get promoted playing away from home like it is doing. It's 6 away games without a win. It's 1 point in those 6 away games. It's 3 goals in those 6 away games. These aren't statistics that are going to get you anywhere near promotion. However, in football, things change.
Are we going to try and be a bit more bold here and maybe put 2 up front?
Yeah, I mean, lots of people say that this style doesn't work. Well, the caveat to that is go and look at Cardiff because they're playing the exact same style. It just looks weird that our best defender, as in defender, the guy who's got the pace to keep up with anyone in this league, the guy who's got the class to be better than anyone in this league, has been allowed to go. The Town got back to winning ways with a 1-0 win over Blackpool at Kenilworth Road on Saturday, and alongside me to look back on that and everything that's happened since the Huddersfield game is the Lutonian journalist James Cunliffe. Jimbo, back to winning ways, home comforts, we can look forward again.
Yeah, it was a pretty job done.
Absolutely that, yep, and we'll go through it all right after this intro. Hello again, welcome along to another episode of the Luton Town Supporters Trust podcast, the award-winning, longest-running Luton Town podcast. As ever, this season the show is in association with Solid, providing opportunities, provisions and assistance so our academy can fulfil their potential. As we said prior to the intro, we're looking back at Luton Town 1, Blackpool 0 from Saturday afternoon, and I've got Jimbo alongside me as always. I did the instant reaction after the game, Jimbo. It wasn't the lengthiest instant reaction, and there was reason for that. But what did you make of the game?
I thought it was quite controlled from Luton. Blackpool didn't seem like they wanted to do anything but come for a draw. And in the minute when they went behind, they thought, well, we better back our ideas up again here. So they tried to play a bit more then. So it was a bit more of a frantic panic at the end, but we got away with it. And I mean, we got away with it.
Yeah, I mean, it was one of those games, wasn't it, that... I mean, I referenced it in the instant reaction. Sometimes you need 2 to tango to make a game of football, and they just had zero interest. I mean, you know, if they were playing next Saturday and it was 0-0, they'd have been perfectly delighted, wouldn't they? It kind of reminded me of the last time Ian Evatt was down here, and we referenced it in the preview, kind of slowly, because obviously we were covering a lot in that preview when he came down with that Bolton side. And it was exactly the same then. They had no intention to win that game either. They just wanted to go back for a replay, which they got. So it's just about winning.
Yeah, that's all it was. I mean, they have talked in the build-up and afterwards about the amount of injuries they've got and stuff like that. But they still have some good players on that pitch. So, you know, CJ Hamilton was very good. The tussle he had with Bramall was quite an interesting one. I've not seen a player keep up with Bramall quite as much as he has. So it was a decent 50-50 battle between those two. So, but they just didn't seem to want to do anything. It was very congested in the middle, which was unfortunate because I really liked, I think you've seen it before, but I really like this fluid positioning that JJ takes up now, Joe Johnson. He's full back when we're defending, and then he's suddenly a midfielder when we're attacking, which is great. A lot more options, and he does look like he wants to go forward and be positive. So I like that. But they congested that middle part of the pitch so much, and then with Bramall occupied quite well by Hamilton, there wasn't a lot happening. But anything that was trying to happen all came from a Luton perspective.
Yeah, that's it. It was always a case of can we break them down, and at times it was slow and it was, you know, not the easiest game of football to watch, and that's exactly what they wanted. You know, that's down to them. It's not it's not down to us. It certainly wasn't for the want of trying. And you're right about JJ's dual role. And obviously, when we're attacking, he goes into midfield to release Casey Palmer, as it was yesterday, been Lamine Fanny in the past and Jordan Clark as well, to go forward and complement the attack. Two changes for the game yesterday. As just referenced, Casey Palmer was in the centre of midfield because Liam Walsh was ill, and we do believe it's ill. There were people starting rumours that he's being sold. Not the case. We believe it's a genuine illness. And Nicky Wells came into the side as well, so that meant that Jordan Clark went backwards. Shaden Morris, was the other one who came in, wasn't he? Casey Palmer started the other night, and Jake Richards went to the bench, who was the other one. So still the same setup that we've been used to at home, not the 3-4-3 that we played at Huddersfield. And that structure is starting to really show signs of fruition at home. Obviously, they've got to find a way to get that to work away from home, and I guess that's the thing. And hey, they've got 4 games in 5 coming up, so they've got plenty of time to work on that. But let's concentrate on what we saw at home. You kind of feel now that we're going to create chances, and yeah, they didn't come as regularly yesterday, but we still had something like 15 shots over the course of the game, which you would always say is a good output. I know some of them were from the edge of the box, but how many times have we been screaming someone have a go, because you just never know?
Yeah, exactly that. I mean, and we had 1 shot on target within the first 3 minutes as well, so that was a relief considering it was only 1 shot on target in the whole of the Huddersfield game. So there was definitely a bit of a buck your ideas up type thing going on there. I really liked some of what the midfield was doing. Casey Palmer had a fantastic first half, I thought, and we weren't really able to talk about him at the Huddersfield game because it wasn't the tail of the tape. He was good then as well. So I like the way he's calm with the ball, but he's happy to try and drive past somebody as well. I mean, Jack's talked about they want to pass through the lines, but he can do that and drive through the lines. And I thought he was a breath of fresh air in that role. And, there's now very significant talk whether Lamine Fanny is going to be here after Monday. And if he's not, then, maybe Casey Palmer is the man for now. The question then is, well, you're letting a 22-year-old permanent signing go for a 29-something-year-old loanee. That is he going to go back at the end of summer? That is a legitimate debate to have, I think. But for now, I like what Casey Palmer is doing in the middle there. And you should say as well that Liam Walsh being ill, that's what I was told by Jack Wilshere. Who knows what will happen after this, but that's what I believe to be the case, that he is ill, and it's not anything else. But the transfer window is all smoke and mirrors, isn't it?
Well, I can quite believe that he is ill. If he was made to watch them last 2 games back in training this week, it's enough to make me ill if I had to do it. Yeah, you're right about Casey Palmer. We text each other during games, don't we? And I was very, very happy with what I saw from him on Tuesday night, particularly in that first half, in that deeper role. And actually, him in that deeper role, Jimbo, does solve an awful lot of problems, because we kind of spoke after the Plymouth game that where he played in the 10 position, that it just throws us all off kilter. We've got too many people who want to play that 10 who are more effective in that 10 role, and maybe not so many who are effective deeper. Yes, we had Lamine Fanny as someone who is effective deeper, but it's seemingly quite clear that Jack wants something else from people in that position. So if Palmer's capable of playing that and going deeper, then that means then that he's only got Clark and Kodja who are worrying about that 10 role. Well, Kodja showed when he replaced Bramall on the left-hand side yesterday that he's still effective on that side. So that also helps. And then, of course, Jake Richards is in and around it too. But yeah, you're right. From what we want from a midfielder, Casey Palmer seems to tick an awful lot of boxes. He's very comfortable on the ball. Very comfortable. And this last week, some of our first touches have been horrendous. He looks like he's got Velcro on his boots, doesn't he, when he receives that ball? He receives it on the half turn, so he's happy to run and drive with it if that's the space that's afforded to him, or if someone's right up his he can lay it off and then spin around the other side and get the ball back and get into that position. He's just a guy who looks to me like he's played 250 games at a level above this, which, funnily enough, he is.
Yeah, he does. He's just got to get that fitness now, because he was brought off because he had cramp. So they've got to build that up, and which is why he was played there because he left Lamine out, we're told, because he wanted Saville to be in there because Walsh was ill, because he thinks that Saville can play the 6 much better than Lamine. And so, but they know that Casey Palmer needs to get minutes into his legs to be able to affect the game for the longer term. And I want to see that as well, based on the minutes he's had so far. I think he's got a very deceptive, languid style, which I think throws markers and defenders off a little bit because, and yeah, like you say, Velcro on the boots, he can just sort of ghost past you, but it looks so effortless, and he's strong as well. So yeah, I think it's a useful signing. Experience is another thing you've got with him. Those 250 games of Championship football are going to be really important, I think.
Yeah, I don't disagree with that. And his partnership with Walsh should, everything go okay from Tuesday morning, should flourish really, because he is the kind of player who can take players away from Liam Walsh. And of course, as we've said before, when you give Liam Walsh time and space, particularly at home, good things are going to happen. Not really much happened in that first half, save for a few long-range shots that were straight at Peacock Farrell. And second half, I mean, it never got going for about 20 minutes, did it? Every other minute, someone went down injured. Mengi went down injured to start off with. Then obviously Cohen Bramall was on the receiving end of if you're of a Blackpool persuasion, you'll say it's a strong tackle. If you're a Luton persuasion, you'll say it's a reckless tackle. And I think there's somewhere in between, really. But he wouldn't have been on the pitch if it was a Premier League game, the geezer who made that tackle. Cohen Bramall got stretchered off. Doesn't sound like it's as bad as when it happened. You thought, "Uh-oh, don't tell me he's broken something," because it was his standing leg that he nailed, wasn't it?
Yeah, it's a generational issue, this one, I think, because me and you remember robust tackles in the 80s and 90s that he gets the ball but follows through on a standing leg, and it does look nasty. In this modern day and age, though, you're right. If that goes to a VAR decision, then they're sending Ollie Casey off there because he's taken the man as well. It looked nasty, and the way that the physio was holding his ankle at the time, I thought, well, he's either broken his ankle here or done a ligament, and then we ain't going to see him for a long time. But afterwards, Jack Wilshere said he's got a nasty cut on his ankle and on his leg. So hopefully that doesn't sound as bad and can heal. But I mean, even so, you probably wouldn't expect to see him for a couple of weeks based on that. I'm told he came out of the changing room with a boot, which I think is par for the course in terms of protecting it and stuff. But yeah, it doesn't strike me as a instant recovery, but hopefully not a long one as well.
Yeah, I mean, the good thing is, as we saw, we have got options down that side. Jake Richards came on for him. And game probably changed at that point, didn't he? Because the one thing that we kind of lacked was someone in front of Palmer to play the ball into. Jordan Clark was alongside Palmer. He went from playing a false 9 on Tuesday night to a deeper midfield role, such as his versatility, and that, he should obviously be applauded for that. But we didn't really have someone to play it into, did we? The wingers want the ball in front of them, of course, and we couldn't get Kodju in the game. They had that well and truly scouted out, and every time he did get the ball, strong tackles were going in on him. They obviously remembered the impact that he had when he come off the bench at their place. But Richards does take the ball, doesn't he? He's got a dream of a first touch, and let's hope we can get him more and more involved between now and the rest of the season, because good things will happen. And also, Izzy Jones came on for Shaden Morris around the same time, played right wing, and it looked better, didn't it? It looked more fluid. We were able, I don't know if it was just Blackpool getting further and further back, but we were able to get in and around their penalty box without really cutting them open at any stage. But, at some point, good things were going to happen. Ali Al-Hamadi came on at the same time that Izzy Jones came on. He looked a bit more physical. When the ball goes into the box, he looks like he can, if not win it, keep the defender away from it. And it was a kind of scuffed clearance, really, from a cross that fell to Jordan Clark, and via deflection, bang, 1-0.
That's the sort of one thing that isn't going to get you totally excited about the performance. The build-up play great, but they're not creating those chances. And maybe on another day they do, but the evidence of a lot of the game shows that we haven't got that extra bit, but maybe it is because of the focal point. There isn't that strong man that you can play it into and play it off, which maybe Al Hamidi will provide, and Devante Cole as well, that they signed about 5 minutes before the game started. So yeah, in that regard, I think that's good, and I think that will benefit Jake Richards because he does look for that. I like what I like about Jake Richards, and it's so simple, is that he's playing with the ball at his feet. He's not looking at the ball. He's looking and scanning where they are, and obviously everybody should be able to do that, but not everybody seems to. So he's always sort of probing for those openings, which is good and positive, and makes you think that, if he gets a run of games, then that will come along. It certainly seemed that way before he got his injury and his illness. So there's sort of like the building blocks there of something without it fully really being realised into anything like structurally sound at the moment.
Yeah, when we play against these low blocks, and it was a very low block, probably not going to look good. You literally just have to win the game and move on and hope that the next team come and play a bit more football. Because I think if teams play football against us, as Lincoln did, then we'll rise to the occasion and we'll be okay. But that wasn't the case yesterday. It wasn't the case at all. The one thing is, the sort of pattern of this season, the narrative of this season is learn from your mistakes. Well, if you think back to the last time we faced a genuinely low block with no intent to attack at all, it was Rotherham. And we broke it down this time.
And I was totally bored during that game. I wasn't really in this one. I thought there were some interesting elements without it really catching light. There wasn't a spark, say. I'm not like going overboard on it at all, but there was nothing whatsoever in that Rotherham game. I was bored as you like. Whereas this one, I could see what we're trying to do.
And I guess in a way that's the thing, isn't it? Particularly at home, you can actually see that there's a plan now. Go back to Jack's predecessor. I mentioned it on here plenty of times. What on earth are we trying to do? Because no one could really see it. We'd signed a load of players for a formation that we didn't play. And then at the start of this season, we signed a load more players for a formation that we weren't playing. And what were we trying to do? Now, if someone says to you, I'm going to watch Luton today, what style of play, what can I expect from Luton? Then you can tell them Luton are a team that want to dominate the football, that want to probe through the lines, that want to get the ball out to their wide players, and they want to create chaos in the box. Now, it doesn't always happen. Again, sometimes the opposition are to blame for that, but that is a plan. That is the plan. That is the plan that's set out there. And when it does happen, a la Wickham, a la Leyton Orient, and from 2-0 down in particular to Lincoln, it's very effective. Now, again, as I said earlier in the podcast, we've got to find a way of transferring that to away games and maybe trying to impose that style on the opposition in away games, whereas at the moment we're in between and getting on the wrong end of being bullied rather than opening them up easier. And if that happens, then good things can come of it. We've both said we don't think Luton are going to get promoted, and one of the reasons for that is because when you win a game of football like we did yesterday, you are relying on the other teams that you're chasing losing, and none of them did. Only Cardiff drew, and we need binoculars to see Cardiff, don't we? But there is a plan there, and that is a positive because, I know everything's negative at the moment, and we explained why, and we asked the questions why, and everything else in the last podcast, but you can still look forward if there's something there to look forward with, and there is, particularly at home.
Yeah, well, it depends how you want to see that situation, isn't it? I think you're right, and I'm not saying that we're going to get promoted in any way, shape or form, because the sheer amount of games that we have to win to reach that total, I forget the one that you came up with, the lowest sort of number.
21, yeah.
So
we need to find 9 more.
Yeah, that's a lot of games to win, and it puts a lot of pressure on the home performances, which, odds on you're not going to win them all. And then the away form is just dreadful. So it's got to pick up away to have any chance of that, and at the moment it hasn't. But then even if it does, there's far too much consistency, I think, in the 6 teams above, that wouldn't drop that many points, which means then you're going to have to go and beat those teams, and which we didn't against Huddersfield, which is why it's felt so bad. I guess you've got a chance against Bradford coming up, and it kind of feels like it's a must win. Again, if you want to rescue any hope into that. I know we've got a game in hand on Huddersfield to bring us to 3 points, but it's effectively 4 with a goal difference, isn't it? So it just always does seem, a little bit too far. But, if you sort of come to terms with that, you can look at how he wants to try and play moving forward. And if they could have a good second half of the season to build towards that next one, it's not what everybody wants. It's not the aim. It's not the goal of everything, but that would be a better plan B than just, I don't know what the plan B would be after that, of just nothing.
Yeah, I mean, for me, promotion's not. I mean, of course it's possible, right? We're 6 points adrift with 54 to play for, and Jack's absolutely right to quote that. But for me, this Luton side can't get promoted playing away from home like it is doing. It's 6 away games without a win. It's 1 point in those 6 away games. It's 3 goals in those 6 away games. These aren't statistics that are going to get you anywhere near promotion. However, in football, things change. And it can change. And
yeah, but that's the benefit of the transfer window, isn't it? I mean, it's still not done as we sat here on Sunday, so we've got 24 hours, just a little bit over 24 hours from the time we're recording now until when that shuts. And even then, they could have done the deals on the stroke of 7 p.m. and you might not hear about it until later in the evening.
Well, the EFL have put their deal sheet, the deal sheet thing that the Premier League have done. So you can still get deals done until 9 p.m. on Monday.
But that's what the transfer window does. It offers an opportunity. And I guess the next thing I probably want to ascertain is, well, now you've got Al Hamadi back, getting minutes, Wells and Devante Cole. Are we going to try and be a bit more bold here and maybe put 2 up front? Carlton Morrison, Elijah style. Is that part of this variation, as a word that Wilshere keeps using? We need variation. Is that one of them? And then maybe that could change that way. But you've got to deal with the here and now and what looks likely at the moment. I want it to change, but it doesn't look likely at the moment.
No, and not. I mean, for me, it's not a possibility until we sort this away form out. Now, I'll go to Cardiff in a couple of weeks' time. I'm not expecting anything from there. But then again, I wasn't really expecting a great deal from there last season. And although it was a honking game of football, we still won it. And they did draw with Burton yesterday, so maybe there are signs of life in that. But the 3 away games after it will tell me if we've got any chance of getting promoted. We go to Wigan. No disrespect to Wigan, but they're falling like like anything. I think I saw Ryan Lowe's been sacked, but there's been so much going on that it might have just have been a rumour that I've seen.
Yeah, I've not seen that one.
Yeah, if he hasn't and he's still in charge, then fair enough. And then obviously the 2 after that, Doncaster and Port Vale are the bottom 2 as we sit here right now. If we don't come out of those 3 games with, let's call it 7 points because it's stupidly condensed schedule. If we don't come out of them with 7 points, then that is absolutely it. Forget about it. Job done. But even if promotion isn't on the table now, at some point we've got to stop the slump. So even if we just sort of plateau for a little bit and then put some shoots into place to rebuild, then that's fine. I mean, obviously we tried to do that in a very short space of time at the start of this season, hence why 21 players left the building and 14 came in. But if we can now have a base plan that we can work from, that hopefully we get 1 or 2 more players to boost it and potentially give us the ammunition to maybe close in on the top 6 over the next 24 hours. But if we can't do that, we have a plan. We have a few players that we can bring forward. Hopefully Casey Palmer isn't just here on loan and he becomes a permanent signing. I suspect we might have to at least threaten for promotion for that to be the case. But then in the summer, we can get rid of the leftover ones that we can't use and then bring in more players that we can use under Jack, under this plan, under this foundation that, you know what you want. You need ball playing centre halves because we haven't got any of those. You need, well, he issued, to be fair to you guys, you asked him about the right back scenario and he said that Izzy Jones is his right back. So if Izzy Jones is here on Tuesday morning, then we know that situation's sorted. So he needs to, build from there. And then hopefully we can start bringing some more of the younger signings through and things like that. And then ahead of next season, go again. I think at some point you just need to say, look, we're getting no lower than this and kind of turn the bar around. And if the bar doesn't turn around with promotion, but it turns around and sets up next season for promotion, then fair enough. I guess people are looking at Cardiff and, they're screaming at me now, well, they've done it in a short space of time, but Cardiff were relegated a month before we were in all but name, weren't they, really?
Well, similarly to Sheffield United in the Premier League season, we got it all down to the last day, but they knew they were gone by Christmas. So, maybe not quite that much, but
hello, Garth Crooks.
They, bloody hell, do you remember that? So yeah, I guess they've got that extra time to promote and plan, and they had a manager at that point that they knew could operate well in the Championship. I mean, not that they did in the end, but they did better than us by a long way. So yeah, there is other ways of looking at it. I get it. Kind of feels a bit meh, doesn't it? Because we wanted promotion, but I think what you said a few moments ago, just about like stopping this narrative or stopping the rot, or whatever the phrase you use, is important, because we've been on this sort of away days in particular, has been on this massively disappointing downturn for such a long time that it needs to rectify itself. I mean, the fact that we're still one place outside the playoffs is a bit irksome, really, isn't it? Because you're that close, but we've been that close so far, but not good enough to get into it the whole time. It's not like we've been in and out. It may be one of those sort of consolidation periods where we try and put in place what will be our style, our personnel, our ethos for next season.
And bring some fun back as well, isn't it? I mean, at some point this season, we're either going to be really pushing for the top 6, or the season is mathematically done, in which case there'll be no competitive pressure on, and that point will become the point which I referenced in the last podcast, where John Still just said, look, we're going nowhere. Forget this season and let me build for next season. He assessed his squad. He was ruthless with the ones that he couldn't take forward, and he brought in the players that he could take forward. And
which kind of is happening now, isn't it? I know people are like, a lot of people are really bemused, I would say, rather than up in arms. I don't think I've sensed that so much, but bemused by Makosa going out. But
he's just not his man, is he?
Yeah, and he's not. He was signed. Lamine was signed. Lamine was signed by Edwards. Edwards was there, and he came in and he had to work under Bloomfield, but he had one game under Edwards, didn't he? His last one. But yeah, sometimes you've got to look at it like that, and that might be the case. But I also think that, the last 2 performances that Makoso put in, as much as we liked him defensively, couldn't play the ball. He's playing it he's playing it to other players on the opposite side, and dangerous passes, and taking too much time and losing the ball, and that clearly is not what Jack wants. So, maybe that ruthlessness is kind of happening now, and if that is it, then it probably is the right time.
Yeah, I agree. If you're watching this on YouTube and you've just seen my surprised look on my face, we've got a football match on in the background, and there was a horrible tackle that went in, similar to what we saw on Cohen Bramall yesterday, actually. Yeah, no, you're spot on. I mean, the problem of having 3 managers in the same calendar year is, unless you're recruiting the exact same style, one manager's gold is another man's rubbish. And we didn't recruit in the same style, I think Jack's similar to Rob.
Well, we don't know what the recruitment was. Really, it was mixed, wasn't it, for the previous one under Bloomfield? Because, like you say, he recruited for one style, one formation, then played a completely different one with Josh Bowler, the main one that basically got frozen out 5 minutes after he got brought in. I mean, so that was really confusing. Whereas I think it's not confusing under Jack. We know what he wants to do.
That's right. Where it's confusing is it's all happened in such a short space of time. I mean, for example, Jerry Yates has been here 4 months and he's out, but he's just not Jack's man. I don't think he's anyone's man, is he, really? And he certainly didn't endear himself to Luton fans, by all accounts, with the interview that he gave to Sheffield Wednesday. Player bigging up club that he's joined. Shocker. Listen, we've got plenty of other things that we need to worry about rather than that.
I listened to that one, and I genuinely don't know what people are getting so up in arms about. He didn't say anything about Luton. He just said Sheffield Wednesday are a big club in England, and they are. They're a big club. The size of them, their ground used to be used for FA Cup semi-finals when neutral territory was a thing, if you don't remember that. So they just are a big club. I don't see what they were, people didn't like Jerry Yates. So it's funny that he went and then he got his name sung in the stadium probably for the first time yesterday, didn't he, by both teams, which was quite a funny little
He
back
did.
and forth.
To be fair, in that first half, there was two things that were of any real note. That banter between the crowd, and there was a dog in the kennel end who was barking as well. To be honest, I thought I was barking in that first half, but no, there was one of those guide dogs that was being trained up, and the person was kind of, I don't know if the person was teasing him with treats or he wasn't allowed treats, but he knew where the treats were, and he was not letting go until he got his treat, to be fair. So, those were the two comical points of that first half. Yeah, you're right. I think the whole problem in all of this was we appointed Bloomfield because he just was different to everything that we wanted. Now, maybe they thought that he was similar to Rob Edwards, but he clearly wasn't. And he's certainly a contrast to Jack Wilshere. At least with Jack comes a formula and a plan that we can, plan around. And, people misstrued my comments in the last podcast that I was against Jack. I'm not against Jack at all. I think, I thought he had a really, really poor night on Tuesday night. But he's a young coach. And if you think back to Nathan, he made mistakes when he first came in as well. But he learned from those mistakes, and I trust that Jack will learn from those mistakes as well. He is not a stupid individual. I've spoken to him three times. We had him on at the content day, and he's come to a couple of trust meetings and things like that to sort of talk to other people. He's a very, very intelligent person. He strikes me as someone who knows how he wants his teams to play. But ultimately, he is largely still working with a squad of players that someone who plays completely different way to him wants to play.
Yeah, and what you're saying is completely different to other things that I'm seeing, that people aren't sold on the style yet. Because it is more control based, more possession based, whereas our 10-year rise was based on being up and at 'em and stuff. But that's not to say that won't happen. Like I say, it'd be interesting to see what the striker situation is at the end of Monday and going into the game at the weekend against Bradford. And if there is two, then maybe that lends itself better, which I believe, to those wing play, those wingers getting those crosses into the box and having more of an effect. So it may be that that's the style for now. I think that you'll largely see us having most of the ball. I can be on board with everybody saying, but we're not doing anything with it. And again, we didn't do enough with it in the final third. But if it is a work in progress, then it's a building block that is clear to see. I do not want to see them passing it back and forth between centre halves. Don't get me wrong, and there was less of that. Even though I think you said that they're still keeping the lion's share of the passes between those defenders rather than the men that are going to do any damage further up the pitch. But I think that might just be how it is for now. I hope.
Yeah, I mean, lots of people say that this style doesn't work. Well, the caveat to that is go and look at Cardiff because they're playing the exact same style. However, as I said in the last podcast, they have physical elements throughout their side, which League One needs, and we don't. We've just signed a physical element up front. So let's hope that's that box ticked. And I'm still hoping and praying that a dominant centre-half comes in between now and Monday night. The style isn't necessarily the problem. It's the players within this style that are the ones that Jack's got to use that aren't suited to it. They're too slow for it, and therein lies the problem. When Mads Anderson gets the ball, he needs to know where he is playing that pass as he receives the ball, rather than stand there for 2 minutes, go into walking pace, and then it all has to recycle again because they've dropped into their positions. Ditto Mengi on the other side, and Nigel Longwake when he gets it. But if we can get a more top level in terms of comfortable in the Championship and Premier League kind of centre half, then that will fit. Whereas Mads Anderson's success in his career has been in League One, and generally in League One before the recent change in style in it, whereby everything's a long ball that you've got ahead, which when that happens, he's absolutely fine.
I am surprised by it, though, because, I mean, he did come from Barnsley, and they do play a bit of football for a League One side, didn't they? So
Now they do, but I don't know if they did.
Yeah, that's true.
If they did back then. But that's the thing. You look the last time we was in this league, there weren't many young coaches in it. Probably Nathan might have been the young coach in the league. I can't remember who was in charge of absolutely everyone around that time. But Barnsley would have had Struber, the guy who's at Bristol City now, I think. And, I can't even remember who Portsmouth would have had in charge when they come down here. But, they were very old school and physical and things like that. Whereas now, if you look at recently, obviously Birmingham won the league last year, and I don't like to use Birmingham as an example, Jimbo, because they're just a financial anomaly. But Chris Davies is his first job. He's been assistant to Ange Postecoglou and lots of others at Tottenham. You look at it now, Barnsley, probably the best footballing side we've played this season, and Conor Hourihane is a Premier League player who's in his first coaching job. The Cardiff manager's in his first coaching job. It's only really Escubala's kind of in and around the early stages of his sort of development. And obviously Lee Grant at Huddersfield, it was his first coaching job until he got dismissed. It's only really Graham Alexander of the teams in the top 6 or 7 who have got an experienced manager, and he's just brought them up from the division below. Generally, the younger coaches are filtering because there's no space for them in the Premier League and little space for them in the Championship now because teams want a Gary Rowett to ensure that they don't go down. Generally, the younger coaches are heading into League One, and they all go through the same coaching badge system, don't they? So they all want to play a similar style, and I think that's why it's happened. But yeah, he'll learn, Wilshere, and he will sort the away form out at some point. If it happens quickly enough that we can still push for promotion, then fantastic. If it doesn't, then we just got to make sure all the ducks are in line to go next season, but finish the season with a bit of a flourish, bit of optimism, and reason for hope come August for next season.
Yeah, I think the hope is important part. I think it is in life in general. We need some hope to see where you're going on the next, whatever it is. In football's case, it's the next season, isn't it? But
I mean, even if it's not hope that we're going to get promoted next season, I mean, obviously, of course, we want out of this league ASAP, as I suspect Jack does. Hope that we're not going to have another season of meh like this season has the potential to turn into.
Yeah, I mean, it's only turned into meh because the mess at the beginning and then the away form currently. If you sort those things out and we're more consistent, we're in the playoffs comfortably, aren't we? It's that element. Like I say, it's remarkable that we've got this view that it's been a bad season, and I'm not going to try and take that opinion away from you whatsoever. But if that is your opinion, then being one place outside the playoffs, and let's say we win our game in hand for effectively 4 points off it, isn't as bad as being, cast aside and really struggling towards the bottom and stuff, which again, I take that it's a very congested league. The points mean that you're only a really bad run away from probably dropping down there. But I think that we're at the point where we are less looking like we're going to do that, but more looking like we're also not going to move forward, because when we do, then we follow it up with a bad game and then we're back to square one, and that seems to be where we are at the moment. We've got to find a little bit more consistency and a bit of spark, which hopefully comes with the new acquisitions. And then, we'll see where we go again. I think it's worth probably evaluating, a month from now, once the transfer window's done, to see where those possibilities are. And maybe it may be that we are getting excited again because something is possible. It may be just that it flatlines out and that it doesn't. So we'll have to see on that one.
Yeah, indeed. I mean, the other thing, just to finish off on the where we are sort of situation, would be bigger picture here. The style that we're playing, if and when we get promoted, will be much more suited to the Championship than the style we were playing when we went into the Championship last time. Hence why it was the mother of all battles to stay up the first season when we went in there. Jack is playing a style, and having coached in the Championship, he'll know what it's all about, that we can hit the ground running a little bit more. in the Championship, because there's absolutely no point in going through all of this, eventually getting promoted whenever it is, this season, next season, the season after, and then coming straight back down again. That's just, we did that in the Premier League. We wasn't really, and I understand why we wasn't really attuned to the Premier League because of the financial disparities and everything else. But when you step up a level, you want to be able to be comfortable at that level, sustain yourself, and then build again. And I think, if you look at the bigger picture, I think the football that Jack plays will work better in the Championship. There aren't so many low blocks in the Championship for starters, so that will be a massive help. And when you go away from home, you're not going away from home on bobbly, horrible pitches where whacking the ball back to front is the best way of doing things. You're going away from home and playing on, carpets, and so being in control of the football will be a good thing. So that's all good. And if you think forward to Power Court, I think Gary said in that Three Counties interview that just on the balance of power, it would have us something like 16th in the Championship, whereas right now we're pretty much where we are in terms of the food chain for football. Well, if that's the case, then having a style of play that will suit the Championship will mean that, in theory, we should never go below our base level, and we should be an established Championship side at the very least, which I think everyone will be perfectly comfortable with. Would we like to flirt with the Premier League? Would we like to have the occasional season minus all of the soulless bowls and everything that goes with it? Yes. But if we were a solid Championship side in a league where teams attack and come to Kenilworth Road and you're watching some good football, as opposed to this league where half of them don't want to go past the halfway line, I think most people would be happy with that. So you're better off having a person in charge who can deliver that kind of football, albeit we might have to go over a few bumpy waves to get there, than the alternative that when you get there, you've suddenly got to re-envisage everything that you do just to stay there.
Yeah, there's a few markers on that road, I think, that you need to check off. Like, we need to be very much harder to beat than we are. That when we do get beat, it's, we get, if it's not like absolutely drubbed, it's the Huddersfield situation where we go into a game, we should be winning, and we end up losing against 10 men, and that can't happen, which, we've talked at length, and even, Jack has acknowledged that that's not really good enough. So that's got to change. We've got to find more of an ability to be a threat, because you can have 60% possession all you like, but if you're not providing that threat, then I think that's where people get the ump a little bit. There was a significant amount of people just in front of me in the press box constantly shouting forward, which every single moment did grate a little bit, because yes, I think you need a happy medium somewhere. I don't want to see those centre backs passing it around for aimless minutes at all, but I don't want to be pumping long balls to nothing. So I think that the style of trying to play through these lines or burst through them with the likes of Joe Johnson and Casey Palmer, as they showed yesterday, is a better way for doing that. But you're going to have to accept that we're not going to just lump balls up to a big man. Now, again, whether that changes, because we've got Devante Cole and Al Hamadi coming in, we'll have to see. So, but you've only got to speak as you find at the moment, haven't you? So, and that's kind of where we are, really. But I think people want to see. I think people want to be excited now, don't they? I think that's the main thing I'm picking up, really. And I do too. Obviously, I mean, I spent a couple of podcasts not too long ago going, all I want is the fun to return. And it has occasionally, and then it's gone away again. Just need that a bit more consistent.
Yeah, I don't want the centre-backs to have as much of the ball as they do, but I don't mind the centre-backs having the ball if they're doing something with it. But how many times do we pick the ball up, particularly when we pick the ball up off Kearley, and they walk forward? It's not walking football. If you want walking football, there's plenty of walking football, teams that are doing the rounds. If you pick the ball up and you run with it, and you look to try and make something happen, and you show crowds that there's some energy there, then I think people will be okay with it. And if Mengi picks the ball up off the goalkeeper and he runs 20 yards with it and there's nowhere for him to pass and all that he's got left is to give it to Mads Anderson, well, at least he's shown some intent to go. It's the walking pace, the slow pace of it. And all that they're doing while this is happening is they're making sure that they're back in their bank of four with another bank of four in front of them, making it even harder. It's kind of counterproductive. And I get, and I,
And,
that's,
and happy to let us have the ball because
course.
we can't score from there.
Well,
We're not going to do any damage.
Well, you're happy to let Mengi and Anderson have the ball because, you know, you look at their pass success rates and at some point they're going to give you it straight back, aren't they? It's just, you know, that's just how it is. Teams work on statistics, and that's why Huddersfield were waiting for that pass the other night, because they knew at some point it was going to come, and there, lo and behold, it did come. Thankfully, it didn't come yesterday. We got lucky towards the end, though.
It's a nailed-on penalty there. Palmer has impeded Ennis, and I'm shocked at how the referee didn't give that, because not only is he right in front of it looking at it, he also makes a motion to bring the whistle up to his lips, and then doesn't. And their players are crowding around him, and that often happens. You know, some players are going to try and get any advantage they want. But then I saw the replay quite quickly, and he's fouled him, and that's a penalty. And we've been let off the hook there massively, really. And afterwards in the press conferences, Ian Evatt was talking about how, I don't know, I don't want to say that he was speaking to him or whether he heard from the referee, but the referee was minded to book Ennis for simulation. And he didn't even do that in the end. But, you know, if that's the case, then thank goodness a decision's gone our way for something, because on that one in particular, I think the ref needs to go to Specsavers.
Well, as he did for the Cohen Bramall incident, yeah, absolutely. He had a bit to say for himself after the game, didn't he, Evatt? Because he was in Casey Palmer's face for a while.
Yeah. Well, we found out afterwards that in his pre-match, and I did listen to it, so it wasn't quite delivered like a barb, but Ian Evatt did say that effectively the Luton plays sort of an academy style, and I think that irked a lot of the players. And there was handbags at the end. To be honest, it was one of the best things about the game.
Absolutely.
I quite enjoyed seeing it, and Wilshere was fine with it because he said no, the players care and they didn't like that, so absolutely fine with it. It didn't tip over into anything that requires a disciplinary. It was all verbals, really. But you know, if you're going to dish out those sorts of words, even if it wasn't quite the barb I was expecting it to be, then you can't go and lose to that team. So they probably were just going, well, you got beat by an academy team, so what do you think about that? Yeah.
Beat by an academy team that you had absolutely no intention of attacking until you went behind. Yeah, what goes around comes around. Yeah, it was handbags, wasn't it? It wasn't Chelsea, West Ham or anything like that. It was just men being men, really, wasn't it? So that was that. A good 1-0 win. It was good to get back to winning ways. Is it a game that was perfect? No. Is it a game that we're going to remember for a long time? No. Sometimes you just have to win, you know? And a lot of the time, the opposition dictate that.
They do. And I think I've said this before. Sometimes we get lulled into the Sky Sportsification of football. But if we've all been at football, we've all watched it for quite a significant amount of time, a lot of it, then nothing happens. This is why Americans can't get into it, because their sport is all like baskets every minute. You know, whatever they do in American football, you have to tell me whatever the wordage is of it. It happens and then it stops and then they go again. They keep doing it. But there's large stretches of absolutely nothing happening in most football. That's why when a goal happens, it's so joyous. And another reason why I think that they shouldn't be penalising players for celebrating, because half the time they're celebrating A, the goal, and B, that they've broken such a boring spell of nothing that they're whipping their shirt around their head and they're getting booked. But that's just football, unfortunately. Sometimes it is boring. Sometimes you just have to grind out a win, and that's exactly what that was.
Yep, it would have been much worse if we didn't win. Transfer window is open and the door is revolving, isn't it? Before we come on to the in, let's discuss the outs. So yeah, Friday it would become very apparent that Jerry Yates was leaving to go to Sheffield Wednesday. I think if some of these players were leaving and were going to levels of similar or below, then people would be fine with it. Well, I think what's getting people annoyance is the fact that they all seem to be going up. I mean, listen, Sheffield Wednesday are going to be playing League One football next season. Jerry Yates is only playing in the Championship for 3 more months. That's assuming that he stays there. I don't know what the situation is with that. Obviously, there's no obligation to buy because they have no facility to buy anyone at the moment. But He's gone. It was the best thing all round, regardless of the fact of whether another striker came in or not. Al Hamadi's back now. Elijah's not too far away, so we're led to believe, albeit they're quite right not to want to put a date on that and put him under pressure. He was never going to get any more football. We don't know until Monday if we're back in the trophy or not, but if we're not back in the trophy, he wasn't going to get any more than the occasional substitution appearance. We don't play to his style. We don't set the ball up for him. So he's better off elsewhere.
Yeah, and again, he's a Bloomfield signing, isn't he? And I appreciate that. I was there as well. That they brought him out. He was the marquee sign-in, 7-figure fee reported, although unofficially undisclosed. They paraded him around the pitch and just before the first game of the season. And at that point, I tend to think there's a lot of revisionism about this, and people have seen him for this season, and they've not taken to him whatsoever. But you can't deny that he scored 10 goals for a failing Derby side last season. He scored 20 odd for a Blackpool team in this division to help them up, and he's been successful in most other places that he's gone, not all, but most. So it was a reasonable gamble to make, but it just absolutely hasn't happened and hasn't worked whatsoever. And I think that it was just a no-brainer that he goes out, really, regardless of it being only 6 months ago now that he came in. When you have that turnaround of managers who want to play different styles and want their own personnel, then that's kind of going to happen. It's just that we went through such a long period, really, of not having that, because we had 4 or 5 year stints of managers in there. Graham Jones notwithstanding, but I think it's probably best for everyone that he goes, and there's no option to buy, so it's just what happens in the summer. But I think fans haven't taken to him whatsoever, so I can't see him coming back. I think he'd probably go out somewhere else.
Yeah, if he hasn't kicked his last ball for Luton, then something weird is going to happen between now and August, that's for sure, particularly as we've signed a player to replace him. As of us sitting here, Jimbo, we haven't signed a player to replace Chris Makosso, who was left on loan, but Oxford confirmed that there's an obligation to buy, so he's also played his last game of football for Luton, I think we can safely say. This one hurts. Oh, not hurts, I mean, crikey. There's a lot more. There's a lot of other things to worry about in life than footballers, but more than Yates, because ultimately the only reason that Makosso's not in this side is because he's not very good on the ball. Well, the ones that are in there aren't very good on the ball. Now, that's not to say that the long-term gain isn't to find players better than Chris Makosso on the ball. But right now, it just looks weird that our best defender, as in defender, the guy who's got the pace to keep up with anyone in this league, the guy who's got the class to be better than anyone in this league, has been allowed to go. But who knows, maybe this looks stupid on Monday when there's a dominant ball-playing centre-half that comes in the door, or if not on Monday, then very early in the summer transfer window, and you have to assess it from there. But it was quite clear he wasn't going to get a game under Bloomfield, under Wilshere. So if they've got their money back, or will get their money back, or something close to that, then ultimately it's probably good business, isn't it? I just find it funny that Bloomfield didn't play him for 2 months when he arrived, and then dropped him because he was late on a few occasions, and now he wants to take him to Oxford. I mean, how's your Donald?
And then in his comments about when he went to Oxford, and he said that it was quite clear that when he arrived and he saw him playing in the under-21s, he was much better than that. And you're like, I'm not sure about that. Ultimately, he played him out of necessity at Watford because we were honking the place out in the first half, and he came on and he improved. And I guess because of who we were playing that day, and he did improve the situation in the second half, albeit not for points, but for a bit of pride back. And a couple of other moments throughout that season, which was terrible, and fans didn't take to many of the players, but they took to him. There was a moment at one of the home games where he made a tackle and beat his chest in front of the fans and that sort of stuff. And he sort of, I don't think it's a stretch to call him a bit of a fan favourite, but then him not playing, always suggested he was very, very far down the pecking order, especially once Wilshere came in. I mean, what did he play? 2 league games and that was it. And the rest of it was a Poetry Trophy. I think, where it, I would say it doesn't hurt or anything, but where it's a little bit, it stings a little bit, is because he's 22, and you've got to imagine he has got quite a high ceiling, but maybe he is more suited to Championship football and above. Who knows? But I would have preferred that it was just a loan deal like Miliali, and at the end of the season he comes back. But that option to buy, although they don't have to take that option, makes you think that would be the end of Makoso's here. And he'll be Oxford player, and particularly since he won the Young Player of the Season award last season, it's like those awards, if you don't mind me saying, seemed a bit cursed, because the Player of the Season, we gave it to Naismith. He went to Bristol, and Young Player of the Season, Makoso, and he's off now. So can we just not give those out?
Well, yeah, indeed. Yeah, predecessor to Makoso as Young Player of the Season was Zach Nelson, and checks our squad list. No, he's not here either. So yeah, you might have a point. Yeah, I think Makoso's played his last game for Luton. It would be ironic if we do sort of salvage this season and get promoted, because I think Oxford are getting relegated. If we're in the Championship next season and Bloomfield and Makoso are in League One. But yeah, no, I wish him well. No ill feeling.
I mean, that would make a change from everything else that's happened, because currently, like I say, managers leave and then end up at teams higher up, and players go into higher teams. It does seem a bit odd, but again, as we spoke about earlier, if they don't fit into the system that the manager wants to play, or they're not his players and they're not they don't have certain attributes like passing, for instance, with Makoso, that he wants in those players, then ultimately they're going to have to go. And it's not unusual for a manager to come in and clear the decks, is it? But it's just he seemed like one of the players that fans really enjoyed.
And also, if the only problem is that he's bad on the ball, you'd kind of hope that someone who was elite on the ball, like Jack Wilshere, could coach that into him. Listen, maybe he can't. Maybe behind the scenes he doesn't want to be here, or he doesn't want to learn, or whatever the situation is. But whatever it is, he'll be doing his learning or not learning, as the case may be, at Oxford. I noticed that they've played 3 home games under Bloomfield, haven't scored in any of them. That's kind of ringing bells that are familiar to when he came here.
Yeah, maybe so.
Not that we care anyway.
No, I mean, it's all that's old news now. But I wonder whether they will bring in a defender, to be honest, because this new revelation that Izzy Jones is his right back would mean that Nigel Longwake doesn't have a place to play in the team unless he is challenging for those 2 central berths. Then we've got backup there, haven't we? We've got 4 centre-halves. I mean, that seems manageable, whereas before we had like 100 million centre-halves, didn't we? And couldn't fit them in a team.
Yeah, that's true. 4 centre-halves, one's 34 years old, and another one in Mengi is injury-prone. So I would still like another defender to come in, but again, we were never going to have perfection at the end of January. There were always going to be gaps in the squad because there were too many to start off with. But one gap that has been filled is up front. We just mentioned that Jerry Yates is gone. Devante Cole, it was the worst kept secret in the world that he was coming. There have been rumours from probably Wednesday onwards. Jack confirmed that someone was in a scanner on Friday. And 10 or 15 minutes before the team sheet came out yesterday, it was confirmed that we've signed Devante Cole for an undisclosed fee from Port Vale, 30-year-old striker. Obviously, if you've followed us all season, you'll have seen him because he scored against us. Ticks every recruitment box in the books, this one, Jimbo. Scored against us and played for Barnsley. I'm absolutely amazed he's not been at this football club sooner, but a goal scorer, and I think he's got something like 8 goals for Port Vale this season, but I looked at Port Vale's goal record and they haven't scored many, so, and they're bottom of the table. I suspect his goal scoring record's better than that. I suspect he's better than that, and let's hope he is the one that can flourish at the front of this system.
Yeah, I mean, he had a better goal scoring record at Barnsley. Is probably where the better place to judge him, and then didn't really cut it at West Brom. But I suppose you said he ticks all the boxes. Well, for me, it deviates from the classic Luton profile, which is that, well, from John Still onwards anyway, they wanted young, hungry players. Yeah, you got to get some experience in, but that was like largely the profile. And I asked Jack Wilshere about that because it does seem a deviation from that recent Luton tradition, whether that profile is something different. Whether the scope of the profile he's looking at players is different to what his predecessors were. So if you want to read about that, that'll be on Lutonian.com. I won't tell you all about it now, but I thought it was quite an interesting little look at the wheres and whys of why they got Devante Cole in, as a 30-year-old. Certainly looked like he's got still pace, hasn't he, when he was at our place. So I think that's going to be useful, but I think just presence and physicality is going to offer us something obviously different to what we've got with just Wells playing there, because that's not his game.
No, you would think now that the centre forward's at least going to be in the box. And I know Jimbo's mentioned about, will we have two? I don't see it. I mean, obviously, maybe that's an option off the bench, but I just don't see us working 9 till 5. Well, it's not 9 to 5, but you know what I mean. Monday to Friday on this structure, and then suddenly changing it now. But obviously now, when we're a goal down at Huddersfield and they've given up attacking, now at least we've got some different options to throw at it to get us back in the game. I go back to Plymouth last week. It was Nigel Longwait's headed down for Jordan Clark, and we should have equalised. Now we've got a striker who can do that head it down role, and hopefully be on the end of the header as well. So yeah, no, that's positive. So a little bit of movement, and Jack certainly hinted that that all is not done between now and 7 p.m. Well, as I say, with the deal sheets and all that nonsense, 9 p.m. on Monday. Any sort of, if deadline day is a big thing, then Jimbo and I will jump on Zoom or something and react to that as quickly as we can. If it's not a massively busy deadline day, then we'll just reflect on all of the activity when we do the preview of the Bradford game, and save swamping your eyes and ears with podcasts.
I mean, it would be nice to have a free night, but I actually do want there to be a bit more business. I mean, they look like they've been holed up at the HQ offices trying to get deals done and stuff.
Got invited to the posh places.
The press conference on Friday got moved there because they've been there for all hours of the day, but really, and I hope that translates into a bit more business. So certainly before that press conference on Friday, with the departure of Yates, I think it opened up 5 spaces. So probably is still that now, isn't it? Because one extra went in and one's come in. Well, one extra went out and one's come in. So it's probably still 5 now.
I can't remember if Makosso fills a space or not. He
was a young player,
keeps on chopping and changing. Either way, there's 4.
Let's say 4 or 5 places that you'd want to have options.
And it could easily be more anyway, couldn't it? Because there are rumours doing the rounds that Marvellous Nakamba's in discussions of having his contract terminated so that he can join with Sheffield Wednesday. And I refuse to believe that Jacob Brown's got a future at this football club. And of course, and I know Tom Holmes isn't part of the squad, but he can't play for Luton again this season anyway, so it would make perfect sense for him to leave tomorrow as well, albeit he can only go to non-league like Bode or overseas, but he did go overseas before, so maybe that could happen. Yeah, so Monday might be busy. We hope it's busy, and hopefully it yields to more options that Jack can use over the last 18 games of the season. Well done to Barry Braham and LTFC Quinney for both predicting Luton 1, Plymouth 0. You'll get 3 points towards our leaderboard, which will be up in the preview of the Bradford game, which will come along to you normal time this week as ever.
And reverse psychology for the win worked this week, didn't it? It wasn't a curse.
It was becoming a curse, wasn't it? But it's not a curse. In amongst the comments for the last podcast, and thanks to everyone who interacted with us. We don't like recording podcasts like that, but we will do it when the situation presents itself. So thanks for all the comments. Someone did mention, are we going to debate Power Court? There is no debate about Power Court. Power Court is very much the future of this football club. And is a necessity. You say
that. Somebody contacted me actually and asked about Power Court because if you look at Arsenal and Spurs, well, certainly Arsenal is probably a better option to look at. That when they moved into the Emirates, there was almost like a unwritten assumption that they'd have to just ride out a period of years to pay back the stadium, and whether that leaves us leaves us potless at the end of it. I think those are questions I would quite like to know the answer to, but obviously I don't have the answers for you.
Yeah, no, absolutely. There is that point, but the debate around Power Court, we need Power Court. Kenilworth Road is a League One football ground. Power Court, as Gary did explain in that interview on Three Counties, will be a championship and above revenued stadium that we can get revenue from 365 days a year. However, there is also a world that exists where Power Court can be built and Luton don't have to have slumped quite as badly as what we have done. And maybe that's a debate for another day, and maybe we'll do that the next time the football isn't particularly worth talking about. Just before we go, behind Jimbo, there is a T-shirt that the Trust produced celebrating the 140 years of Luton Town Football Club. It's kind of like one of those concert T-shirts, isn't it, where all the dates and everything are on the back of it. And there are many, many ones from the promotions to the cup finals to all of the other sort of dates that Hatters Heritage gave us. And put on the back there, these are selling at £25 from the Luton Town Supporters Trust Shopify shop. We'll put the link to that in the show notes. So if you do want one, it's nice memorabilia and a reminder of the great times that this football club has had, which hopefully Jack Wilshere and co will be bringing back in the not too distant future.
Fingers crossed.
Indeed. Yep. That's pretty much it for this episode of the podcast. So the next podcast will either be an update of a busy transfer window deadline day, or it'll be the preview of the Bradford game. But if you hit the subscribe button wherever it is that you get your podcast, turn the notifications on, you'll know exactly when all of our content drops over the remainder of this week. Thanks to all of the folks here at Marsh House for hosting us once again, and to Sean Grant and the Wolf Gang for our intro music. Something from Jimbo and myself. Until next time, thank God we're back to winning ways. That was a bit more like it, Town.